Civil society groups are strongly against the National Treasury's decision to exempt Eskom from the Public Finance Management Act. This will mean that the power utility will not have to declare or report any irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure in its financial statements from this current financial year until 2025. Now, Transnet was also granted a similar exemption last year. Treasury argues that this move will help the two state-owned enterprises' credit outlook. Our reporter and fellow eNCA here at eNCA, Heidi Giokos, is tracking this story for us. Today is joining us now this afternoon. Heidi, everywhere you talk to anybody about this, people are saying they're shocked, they're surprised because of the history of corruption. And we saw what came out of state capture, especially around the state-owned enterprises like Eskom and Transnet. It just baffles the mind why you would do this at this time.
It does baffle the mind, and I think the finance minister tomorrow before portfolio committees, including public enterprises, at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, the finance minister will have a lot to explain to, because there's a lot of confusion as to what this actually means. From our understanding and from the letter that has been issued by the finance minister exempting Eskom from including irregular and wasteful expenditure in the annual report, is that it wants to make sure that it has a better credit outlook. So basically, just having a better image. And
so you're risking governance,
basically
controls for creditworthiness.
Yes, exactly. And the possibility of possibly getting further loans, because if you have about 60 billion, let's say, of wasteful and irregular expenditure, how are you going to get a loan if you are in a need of loan?
But help me understand, Heidi, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah. Didn't the minister, when he announced the package for debt relief for Eskom at the
almost 300 billion rand.
Yeah, over there, he said Eskom must not carry more debt. So why you want to attract more borrowing?
Exactly, and this is what's worrying, is that why would you put Eskom in a position where it does not need to, it's not that it's not going to report. I think we must make this clear, and we're going to hear from analyst Kai Setola now explaining this. It's not that they're not going to report it at all. They're just moving it from the annual report into the integrated report. So instead of it being on page 1 included in the actual financial results, it's going to be included into the integrated report. The Auditor General's going to have to go to page 400 of the integrated report instead of page 1 of the actual annual financial results. It makes it a lot more complicated, but they're still going to be audited on this. But what they're basically doing is, if those that are borrowing Eskom money, those that are
lending money to Eskom,
yes, lending money to Eskom, and those that are looking at Eskom to rate them, don't see this on the first page of the annual results, then they'll say, okay, well, there isn't really wasteful expenditure here, let's move along and rate them on,
stuck somewhere in the middle of the integrated report.
So you basically, and you know, analysts are saying it's not really hiding anything, we mustn't misconstrue this, but it is hiding. You are hiding the results or that figure right at the back of the report.
So Heidi, before we listen to Kai Setola, if you're not hiding, you're just obfuscating the fact. You're just removing the reality from being upfront. You're putting it in the background. And doesn't change anything.
Yes, but why is that reality not upfront? Because that's the reality of our state-owned entities, is that we have wasteful expenditure ballooning into the billions, where you have, for example, power station like Kusile that's in desperate need of money for it to be fixed because there are serious structural defects that could push us out of the rolling blackouts. Why is that not being considered? But let's listen to Kai Setola, who actually explains how it's moving from, for example, page 1 of the annual report into the integrated report on page 400, for example.
Historically, how the audit process relating to Eskom and other state-owned enterprises is that it audits the financial information, which is designed according to international financial reporting standards, and then it also audits compliance with the PFMA. In the compliance with the PFMA, the exemption is then said, look, for this 2 or 3 year period, we will then simply say that these financial statements must not be qualified simply on the basis of non-compliance with the PFMA. The information that is currently disclosed, which is information on irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, is currently part of the financial statements that gets audited by the Auditor General. What will now happen is that information will now move to the annual report, where the requirements for auditing are very different. So these companies will not get a qualification on an audit opinion only on the basis of non-compliance with PFMA. But if they do other things that are wrong, they will still get a qualification.
Okay, so they will be reporting it, as explained, but not upfront. But there should be concerns around governance, Heidi.
Yes, certainly. I mean, this is why I need to understand from the finance minister, and South Africans at large need to understand what this actually means, because you're speaking about a state-owned entity that doesn't have a good track record. There are billions that are wasted. There's irregular expenditure. Why is this not being reported on upfront? As much as Eskom has come out to defend this request, to say the reason why we are doing this is because it does affect our credit rating. It does affect how rating agencies rate the state-owned entity. At the end of the day, these are public funds. South Africans have a right to know upfront how much is being wasted.
Accountability.
Yes, exactly. And this is not a good image for South Africa. It's not. It doesn't send the right message of accountability and good governance at our state-owned entities. You saw Kasate coming out saying it's almost as though National Treasury is enabling this kind of state capture that we've previously seen. Is this now round two, which we hope does not happen? But the finance minister will, of course, have to answer to this tomorrow when he briefs the portfolio committees. Let's listen to one individual who speaks about the fact that this is not good for South Africa. And at the end of the day, you have to be upfront about this. It's a state-owned entity. South Africans are sitting in load shedding for days on end. Let's listen in.
This exemption will not help South Africans, will not help communities. This exemption, what it means, you are deactivating accountability. That's all that it means. This exemption, it means Eskom has been allowed not to be accountable. You recall that Eskom is accountable to Parliament, through various committees such as POPA and portfolio committees, but of importance, it is accountable to us as citizens. So with this exemption, Eskom will not be accountable. But I think the important thing to note here is that the governance structures, the attention of the governance structures within the accountability ecosystem or value system, their attention will shy away from these irregularities because these matters are no longer a priority. They have been exempted. Which structure will look at the matter that has been exempted? The audit committees, the scopers, the portfolio committees, and everyone else. In fact, even the investigation agencies themselves, all of them, the SIUs, all of them, they all look at this thing because this thing has now been permitted. So you are sending out a wrong message there to say to the investors that here is the entity, because it has got positive audit outcomes, invest in it.